everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna make something that's very fast, very easy, very scrappy, and in my opinion, a fantastic gift this holiday season. Today, we're gonna make a bowl cozy, however you wanna say it. We're gonna make a little bowl holder for your hot and your cold bowls. So there are lots of variations of this little bowl holder on the internet. There are so many different patterns. I think there's even templates you can get to make them. Honestly, I was filming a quilt block tutorial for the channel and I needed a quick craft to do with it. And so I just whipped this together, added some snaps. It's so cute. So let me show you. This bowl holder, what should we call it? Let's call it a bowl. Call it a bowl koozie. Okay, we're gonna call it a bowl koozie in this tutorial. So like, look, this is 4 little mini quilt blocks and they're already quilted. What I did was I just sewed them together. This, when unsewn, is 8.5 by 8.5 inches. When sewn, it's 8 inches by 8 inches because seam allowances, right? So I made this little square and then we added some snaps to all the straight edges. And then all you gotta do, bada bing, bada boom, snap them together. So when you lay it flat, it's kind of like a pot holder or just, you know, like a placemat for the bowl. But when you clip them together, they create this little bowl shape, and then you take your bowl here, insert it in there. And if you got a bunch of ice cream, your fingers don't get all frozen. And if you got some hot soup, they don't get hot. It's just such a cute little make. So this is a smaller version. This is a 8-inch by 8-inch bowl koozie. When playing around with it just for fun, I also made a larger version. This is a 10-inch by 10-inch, it ends up 9.5-inch by 9.5-inch. So you can get very, very creative with the measurements here. I definitely play around with it. I mean, try a 6-inch by 6-inch, try a 12-inch by 12-inch, just whatever kind of ruler you have to make it easier, try it. But this is a bigger one, so this is a bigger bowl, you see. Bigger bowl. And so we're just gonna put the bigger bowl in there, and there you go. Now, this one does have these pointed edges. My mom, to be honest, these are my mom's. I had to go to her house just a minute ago to grab them because she took them and she absolutely loves them. She says she uses them every single day. She uses the big one for her hot food. She uses the small one for her ice cream. But what she says is when she does use the hot food, she does kind of tuck down this edge like that so that way she doesn't, you know, get food on it. But she's done that. I also did another version here with rounded edges to help a little bit. You still would have to probably still tuck it down just a bit because it is a bit high. So that's another thing you can play with. You can play with the size of this. You can play with rounding the edges, how much you want to round the edges. It's just such a fun, easy, quick make. And it seems simple because it is. It seems small because it is kind of small, but it is a very useful tool. I mean, I was kind of surprised because I just asked my mom, I was like, hey, can you just try it out? She loved them so much, she's like, they're all mine, I'm keeping all of them. She keeps them on our kitchen counter and she uses them every single day. So what gift is better than that and something they're gonna use all the time? And it's just so much fun because you can get very creative with what kind of fabric you use on here. You can quilt it, you can design on it, you can use heat transfer vinyl, embroider on it. You just have so many options with such a quick, easy make. So in today's tutorial, because it is so quick, we're gonna make 2. We're gonna make a smaller version and a larger version. I will give you measurements for everything. This does require 2 pieces of fabric. I'm using quilt cotton. You could probably also use cotton lycra here if you'd like. I'm also using fusible fleece as the batting. You could use regular batting. You could use some sort of a thermal batting if you really wanted to make sure that, you know, it protected your fingers, kind of like something you would use for a pot holder. When I showed this project earlier on the channel, I had quite a few people asking about microwaving these. Since we have plastic snaps, I do not recommend doing that. They will melt. Also, if you use metal snaps, also don't do that because metal in the microwave is a big no-no. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, anything at all, leave them down in the comments section. I will have timestamps today. It is very quick, but we will be going through a couple different versions. And I know that if you just want to make the small one with rounded corners or you just want to make the bigger one, I'll make sure I have timestamps to help you out. All right, guys, let's get started. So here are my 2 sets of material for today. I'm going to make a larger bowl koozie and a smaller bowl koozie. For the larger one, I have 2 cuts of quilt cotton here, and each of these are cut 10 inches by 10 inches. Why not 10.5 by 10.5? Because these are just not. They're 10 inches by 10 inches. I believe a layer cake is usually 10 inches by 10 inches. If it's not, you can use whatever size it is. But if you like to buy pre-cut pieces of fabric, the nicer, bigger, larger ones are usually called a layer cake, and you can get a lot of really beautiful prints without having to buy a lot of yardage. So this is a great project for that. So you're gonna need 2 cuts of that. I don't have these interfaced with anything. They're just the material. And then your fusible fleece or whatever type of batting or anything you wanna use, it's good to cut that about 1/2 inch smaller. So this is 9.5 by 9.5 inches, and we'll fuse this on in just a moment. For the material for my smaller bowl koozie, my fabric cuts, once again, are just quill cotton with no interfacing, and these are 8.5 by 8.5, and the fusible fleece is 8 inches by 8 inches. I wanted to show you that I have a little cutout here. This is a 4-inch circle, and so this is something I was using to round the corners. You could use a smaller circle and get a tighter round. You could use a bigger circle. For example, here's a 4 3/4 inch circle and get a bigger round. So you have lots of options here, but I think I'm going, let's see. Let's try the bigger one. Let's try the 4 3/4 inch circle today on one of these. I don't know if I'm gonna use it on the large one or the small one yet. To create that bowl shaped from a square piece of fabric, I'm going to be using snaps. I'll particularly be using these plastic can snaps. You can get these fun little bundles with lots of colors. So I have my plastic snaps. I have my hand pressing tool. This is a great one. I would say this is like a mid-level rivet press. This is just one step down from the big one with the big lever, but it is definitely a lot better than those kind of plastic flimsy ones you can get. I highly recommend this one for starting out, or just in general. I use this one all the time. If you do have a bigger press, you can use it here today, but I did want to say that this one does allow you to get into tighter nooks and crannies that maybe you can't get in with a larger press. Just something to consider. And then I have a hole punch here. You don't have to have a hole punch. You could just use an awl, which is pretty much like a stiletto to just poke the holes out for your plastic snaps. But since I've got the hole punch here, I'm gonna use it. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of other stuff today. Clips, as always. A stiletto is helpful when you're at the sewing machine. I will be using Microtex 8012 needles because that's just my go-to needle for most projects. You could definitely use a 7010 though. If you're using like a quilting needle, that will be fine. My thread today is a Tex 35 weight, whatever thread you're comfortable with. I'm even gonna say if you wanna use cotton thread, you can use cotton thread today. I don't recommend it for bags, but for this project, I think you'll be okay with cotton thread if that's what you wanna use. For the bobbin thread, I just have some Gutermann thread from Joann's and then a good pair of scissors. Before you adhere the fusible fleece, if you'd like to go ahead and round the corners of your 2 cuts of fabric and your fusible fleece, you can go ahead and trace this and cut this now and then adhere everything together, or you can wait until after you adhere the fusible fleece, which is what I'm going to do, but that does mean that some of the fusible fleece will end up in the seam on the corners, so just think about that. So let's start by getting our pieces pressed. I don't know if you noticed, but I have not ironed my fabric yet, so I'm going to iron my fabric pieces and then I'm going to press on the fusible fleece. Fusible fleece I'm using today is a Pellon Thermolam Plus. I forgot the exact number, but I will have a link for it down below. It is my favorite fusible fleece. Fusible fleece can be a little tricky sometimes, but the Thermolam Plus does not give me any problems whatsoever, so that's what I'll be using. So today I'm going to show you how to make this without binding. If you want to make a cute little mini quilt and then bind it, you can do this. That would be amazing, but I'm not going to be binding it today. All right, so pick one of your cuts of material. I don't think it really matters which side the fusible fleece goes on, if it goes on the inside of the bowl or the outside of the bowl. I have been placing it on the cut that's on the outside of the bowl because I feel like maybe it'll just look a little bit better, but I don't think it really matters. So take one of your cuts and lay it wrong side up, and then grab your fusible fleece and do your best to just center it. You should have about a 1/4 inch overhang on all 4 sides. You can measure if you'd like, but you don't have to. So I'm just kind of pressing this down like that, and then I'm going to pick up the whole unit. Fusible fleece will stick to it pretty well on its own, and then I'm just going to flip it so the fabric is right side up, and then I'm going to press it with my iron. I typically like to use a lot of steam with fusible fleece, but I didn't fill up my iron. But I found that actually just using a hot iron, and the trick with fusible fleece is you want to keep the iron moving. I'm not pushing down and stretching the material. I'm just kind of gently, just wiggling it around, keeping the iron moving, and that will prevent the fusible fleece from scrunching up and making my material all ripply. All right, once you have it pressed, flip it over, kind of peel out the corners. There we go, all good. So now I'm going to repeat that with one of my larger cuts of material and my larger fusible fleece cut. Once again, just centering it and then flipping it right side up. And just keeping that iron dancing around. All right, once that's done, let's put the iron to the side. Now let's see, which one of these do I want to round the corners of? I think I'm going to do the big one because the big one does have pretty tall points. So I'm going to round the corner of the big one. So all I'm going to do is flip my material wrong side up and lay this and line up the edges of my circle with the edges of my square. Should you round the fusible fleece separately? You can. If you'd like, you can definitely round the fusible fleece before you adhere it to the material. But honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Fusible fleece isn't terribly thick. We can still sew it into the seam. We just don't want to sew a ton of it into the seam. So I'm just going to line this up with the edges and draw along the circle edge for my corner. There we go. I'm going to do this for all 4 corners. And I'm going to repeat this with the other cut of material as well. Now that we have our rounded corners traced, let's just grab our scissors and cut those corners off. Okay, so now we're just going to piece these together similarly. So let's do them both at the same time. So take your 2 cuts of material and lay them right sides together, lining up all the edges and the corners. Do this for either and all sizes. And then grab some clips and just clip these together to hold them in place. You just don't want these moving around too much. And honestly, they really don't move around a lot, but just to be sure. Okay, before we sew this, pick one of the long edges here, and that's the edge you're gonna leave as an opening. So grab yourself a ruler, and I would suggest anywhere between a 3 and a 4 inch opening, depending on how thick your material is. I'm gonna do 3.5 inch on the big one, then I'll do a 3 inch on the smaller one. And now we're going to start sewing at one of the marks and go around all 4 edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure we stop at the other mark. At these marks, make sure you backstitch well because we will be turning everything through this small hole here. If you're more comfortable using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, that's perfectly fine. Just know that you will be sewing on top of your fusible fleece. So if that's something you're trying to avoid, the bulk, then you will want to make sure you cut down your fusible fleece. We initially cut down the fusible fleece to 1/2 inch smaller than the exterior. If you're going to do a 3/8 inch seam allowance, go ahead and cut it down to 3/4 inch smaller. So now let's take this to the machine and sew these up. All right, once you have this sewn together, let's look at the box corners first. I'm going to cut down, not really close to the thread, but close-ish. I'm just going to cut down these corners. It's going to make poking them out a bit easier. There we go. If you have rounded corners, you could definitely just kind of clip into the seam allowance little slits that are perpendicular to the stitches. So you see it just cutting straight into it. And that will help the fabric spread out and fold over itself as it needs to. Especially if you did not cut down your fusible fleece like I didn't here. This might help because the fusible fleece will add a bit of stiffness to these corners. And we don't want them to be stiff. We want them to fold the way we want them to fold. All right, now the fun part. Let's turn these out, right side out. Where's the hole? Just gently push all the material through the hole so it's right side out. And just use your fingers to round out those corners. Here we go. And then you can flatten it out, and we will use the iron to flatten it out even better before we top stitch it. So now let's do the same with the smaller one here. Just gently turning it out through that hole. And if you need to, go ahead and grab a turning tool and poke that into the corners to get the corners to come all the way out. Now let's get our iron, and if you need to, just kind of roll these long edges so that you don't have one fabric kind of peeking through to the other side. You want to get this as squared up as possible. Honestly, it's not difficult. It's very easy to do this. You shouldn't have any problems here. So you can see I'm just doing one edge at a time, just kind of finger pressing it and then ironing it. Nothing about this needs to be perfect though. If there's a little bit of a wave, a little bit of a wonky seam, that's perfectly fine. You're never going to notice. So then here where we have the opening, just make sure you roll the seams so they meet up with one another along the same line. You don't want one edge to be folded in more than the other because then we won't catch it when we're top stitching. So get it where you want and then press it. And pressing it with an iron will keep it where it needs to stay. Okay, so this one is ready. Let's do the rounded corner. Let's see how these corners are with the fusible fleece. They don't seem bad, honestly. They're not really bulky. So I'm just gonna round out these rounded corners and then press them with my iron. And then with the opening, once again, just fold both edges in, making sure they line up along the same spot here, and then give it a good press. All right, so this one's good to go as well. So now that we have these flat and pressed and our seams are tucked in, if you're a little worried about those seams or you just want to make sure you remember to pay extra attention to them, grab some clips and just clip right where that opening is. Just so you remember when you're top stitching that you need to catch the bottom and the top layers. So now let's take these to the machine and we're just going to top stitch around all 4 edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, so now we have both of these top stitched. You're going to want to decide which is going to be the outside of the bowl cover and which is going to be the inside of the bowl cover. So I think for this larger one, I'm going to make the red the outside, and for the smaller one, I don't know, should I make the gingham? I'm going to make this plaid kind of gingham the outside. So now grab some sort of a marking tool and a small ruler. And what you're going to do is you're going to fold your holder in half, and we're worried about this fold over here. So we're going to just fold the long edges or just opposite edges in half like this. And then we're going to focus on this corner. And we're going to measure 1/2 inch down and then 1/2 inch in from the folded edge. So it's like a little 1/2 inch square we're making right here on the corner. And then just mark a dot right where the 1/2 inch down and 1/2 inch over meet. Just like that. I like to grab clips to hold this together. All right, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, just kind of lining this all up. Once again, 1/2 inch in and 1/2 inch down, and then mark a dot. There we go. And I'm going to add clips so I don't lose my spot. And now I'm going to grab my hole punch, and I'm going to just punch through both layers. So remember, this is folded in half still, so I have this side and I have this bottom side. I'm going to punch through all the layers using my hole punch right at that mark. There we go. Do this for the other side as well. So now when we open this up, we should see 2 holes on one side and 2 holes on the other side. So now we're going to repeat that by folding the sides that have the holes. We're going to fold those together, lining up the edges and corners. And then once again marking our 1/2 inch down, 1/2 inch over. Now if you wanted to sew this instead of using snaps, what you're going to do is you're going to measure 1/2 inch down from the fold and mark a line on the edge where the seam is, just like that. And then you're going to measure 1/2 inch over from that seam on the fold. And then clip these together. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew a line from one edge to the other, just this little diagonal line. Make sure you backstitch well at the beginning and the end. And that way this will permanently stay a little bowl shape. However, I am going to be using snaps, so I'm going to once again measure in towards the center, 1/2 inch down, 1/2 inch over. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. And then I'm going to use my hole punch once again to punch through both layers of my folded fabric. All 4 edges should have 2 holes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, just like that. I'm going to repeat that with the larger one. I am still going to stick with 1/2 inch down, 1/2 inch over. You are more than welcome to change up those measurements if you'd like. The more you measure in, the smaller the circumference will be on the bottom for the bowl. I find 1/2 inch works great. And again, give it a try. Try using snaps and try sewing it. See which one you like better. Once you have those holes punched, just once again fold it the other way. So we're accessing corners that don't have hole punches yet, and repeat. Okay, so now both of these should have all holes punched and ready for their snaps. So this is the fun part, picking out your snap colors. Let's see. I have a lot of red, so I think I'm going to go with red snaps for this. Now, you're going to need a total of 8 caps and then 4 male ends and 4 female ends. Okay, I have all my sets for my 2 holders. You can see I have 4 edges, so I have 4 sets. Each edge needs 2 caps and a male and a female. So just think about that whenever you're pulling your colors. And again, this is where you really need to determine which is the outside bowl, which is the inside bowl. So in this one, the red is the outside bowl. So my caps are going to be installed on the outside like this. And then the male and female ends will be installed on the opposite side. So grab a cap and poke it through the outside portion fabric, flip it over, and then grab the male or female end, it doesn't matter, and place it over the cap. There's a little pokey part in the cap. Place them together like that, grab your punch, and just press down. There you go. Now we have one installed. So grab another cap and insert it into the other hole, again from the outside fabric. And then just make sure if you installed a female end over here that you're installing a male end. You don't want to accidentally install 2 of the same kind because then it won't snap together. And these can be kind of a bugger to get out. So if you mess up, it's a bit of a mess to fix it. So I'm just going to install that. See, and that way, I like to always just test it out, clip it together. There we go. Nice little corner. So I'm going to repeat that for the other 3 sides. All right, I have all the snaps installed. I just want to see what it looks like now. Snap them all together. Kind of flatten it out. Oh, that's so cute. What a festive little bowl, huh? This is what I'm going to have my Christmas ice cream in. All right, so let's repeat that with the other one. Remember, this one has the rounded corners. So I'm just going to lay it flat. And I do like being able to lay it flat. That's why I didn't choose to sew any of these, because it is nice to be able to just lay this flat. You can put something on it. You know, it's fun if you have kids or something like that. It's like a little placemat for their dessert or for their meal, you know, and then you can just snap it up in case their fingers get too hot or cold. I don't know. I think it's adorable. So now we're going to move to the square one, which is the smaller one. Once again, figure out which side is the outside, which side is the inside. And I'm going to make this the outside. So that means my caps go through the outside fabric and then poke through to the lining side or inside fabric. And then once again, we're just going to press in a male and female snap on each edge. Just make sure you're always paying attention to that. That's why I divide up my snaps into these sets, because I've checked it all. Okay, now let's snap together this small one. You guys can see the difference in size from the top. Whenever you do it, just make sure you kind of push it down a little bit. Oh, that's so cute. That's so cute. So you can see here's the larger one, here's the smaller one. This would be good too for like a little pint of ice cream. I think that would be nice. These taller angles would be good for that. They're just adorable. Oh, you guys, these turned out so cute. Okay, let me get my big bowl. So here's my big bowl. I'm gonna smush it in there. There we go. Oh yeah, look how cute that is. Festive little bowl of I don't know what. I mean, you don't even have to use this for cold and hot things. You could just use it because it's a cute little bowl cover, you know, or if you made something. So let's see, we make rum balls. If you've seen the video, you know, we make rum balls in our family around the holidays. And so if you wanted to like have like a cute little bowl, like a holiday bowl, fill it with rum balls or cookies or whatever you like to make, and then make a little custom bowl koozie to go with it. What a beautiful gift, right? Oh, I would love to get that. Okay, and here's the smaller one. Let's try that with the smaller bowl. So that works well. I'm gonna go see if I have any ice cream though, because I do want to see if this works with like a pint. Okay, so I've got some ice cream here. Let's see. This is a non-dairy coffee caramel fudge made with almond milk. The joys of getting older. But let's see. Let's put that in. Okay, so this is a little big for this. So let's see. This one was 8.5 by 8.5. I bet if we cut it down to like 8 inches by 8 inches or 7.5 by 7.5, it would be just the right size for this. I mean, it still works. I could definitely hold on to this and grab a spoon and just not have to worry about my fingers getting all frozen. That sounds fun. So I hope you love making these. They really are fun. I will tell you this one here that looks a little worse for the wear. It's because it has been washed and dried and not ironed. So these are very durable. You can just make them. use them, spill on them, put them in the washing machine, put them in the dryer. They're gonna work great. You know, if you want them to look nice again, then just give them a press with the iron real quick. But these are fun, and you can make, I mean, look, you can just keep pumping them out. You can make so many of them. Such a great gift idea. And you guys know, as we go into November, December, I am just all about quick, easy gifts. I know I have 1,000 things I'm trying to get done. I wish I could make a huge, beautiful tote bag that takes 12 hours to sew for every single person in my life. That's just not possible. It's not possible for me to do that and then also still be present and enjoy the holidays myself, you know? So these are the types of things, these little quick makes, these are great things. They are still thoughtful, they are still wonderful gifts, and they're something, again, that the person who you're giving it to is actually going to use all the time, which, in my opinion, as somebody who is so busy, those are the gifts I love the most, you know? Like, it's fun to have the frilly, fancy, you know, things that I can keep in my closet and use occasionally, but the things that I'm just gonna keep on my kitchen counter and use every single day, like, perfect gift, or especially if they're things that my kids can use as well. It's gifting season, guys. So I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.